Now, we've been reporting on the scandal of doubling ground rents for more than 18 months now. Ground rents are paid by homeowners to the person who owns the land their home is built on. Thousands of homes are virtually unsaleable because they have ground rents that would rise from hundreds of pounds a year to £10,000. The developer Taylor Wimpey has set aside £130 million to convert the leases so that they'll increase in line with inflation. But leasehold campaigners worry that they won't be much better off. Now, this was discussed last night at Westminster. Melanie Abbott was there for us. Mel.
Yes, Peter, thousands of these houses were sold leasehold with these escalating rents between 2007 and 2011. With ground rents doubling every 10 years, in 50 years' time, the bills will be massive. We're talking about thousands of pounds. Lots of mortgage companies are now simply refusing to lend on these homes. It's been described as a scandal because many people don't think houses should be sold leasehold at all, and often the buyers used conveyances recommended to them by the developer, and they claim that they were never clearly told about these doubling ground rents. Now, last year, the builder Taylor Wimpey said leaseholders could convert their doubling ground rents to increases in line with RPI, that's the Retail Price Index. But last night, a meeting of the all-party parliamentary group on leasehold reform heard that this wasn't ideal. Jo Derbyshire owns a Taylor Wimpey home, and she's been doing some sums.
My ground rent started at £295. It doubles every 10 years for 50 years, at the end of which it will be £9,440 a year. If I convert to RPI, although more modest to start with, they apply for the entire term of the lease, so it will increase every 10 years for 250 years in my case. And the total ground rent under my current doubling lease is around £2 million, which is horrific enough.
Over the 250 years?
Over the 250 years. But with the RPI at 3.3%, it's a whopping 25.7 million. I was horrified. I was thinking, well, how can this be better?
But after 50 years with RPI, you would be a lot better off than the current doubling ground rent.
I could well be, but what I'm in effect doing, I think, is kicking the ground rent time bomb down the road. What I want to do is for Taylor Wimpey to do the right thing and do what they promised in the first place, which was to give me my freehold for around £5,000. That's what their salesperson told me at the time I bought the property.
And Jo Derbyshire told me she has other reservations. Accepting this offer would mean she couldn't take part in any group legal action that might be brought against Taylor Wimpey in the future. So she's actually thinking about turning down this offer, even though it would then mean that if she wants to sell her home, she could only do that at a hugely reduced price.
So what does Taylor Wimpey say?
Well, they say the new lease terms will make ground rents much more affordable and will address concerns about the saleability of these properties. And they say that increases linked to inflation mean that the ground rent remains the same in real world terms. So that's taking into account inflation for the lifetime of the lease. And they also say that anyone who wants to buy the freehold of their property in the future, that freehold will be cheaper. And they say this agreement is reasonable and it only restricts people from taking further action against Taylor Wimpey and not against any third party.
Now, the government has said all ground rents in future should be set at zero and houses should no longer be sold as leasehold. How's that going down?
Well, broadly, it's being welcomed, especially by the homeowners, but not by the retirement home sector. Clive Fenton, who is the chief executive of the biggest provider, McCarthy and Stone, was at the meeting, and he told them that their ground rents, which are fixed for 15 years and then increase with inflation, they pay for the shared areas in their retirement developments.
Lounges, restaurants, mobility scooter stores, things like that. So we charge a small ground rent. We then sell those ground rents onto an investor. They pay us a sum, which we reinvest back into our land and development programme.
Wouldn't it be more honest, really, to just increase the price of these homes up front so people know exactly what they're paying?
We think our customers would prefer to pay a ground rent rather than an increase of probably around £15,000 on the price. However, what it's been suggested to us is, well, why not give your customers the choice? And we think that's probably a perfectly fair suggestion.
But if pensioners are the only ones still paying ground rent, isn't that going to be incredibly unfair?
Well, I think it's about giving customers the choice, and secondly, to explain what this ground rent is paying for. It's paying for all these very valuable shared spaces that actually create a very active community life in our developments.
And the government says it will make a decision about ground rent for retirement homes soon.